I'm going to tell you something I wish someone had told me about 5 years ago, and it would have saved me a lot of money and a lot of frustration. I spent thousands of dollars on premium Japanese hand tools, top-tier chisels from a respected smith, a kana that took me 3 months to track down, a pull saw that cost more than my first table saw. I was convinced that if I just got the right tools, my joinery would finally look the way I wanted it to. And here's the thing. Those tools were extraordinary. Every single one of them was beautifully made, perfectly balanced, and worth every penny of what the maker charged. The problem wasn't the tools, the problem was me. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly how I learned that lesson the hard way, so you don't have to. And stick around to the end, because I'll share a simple practice routine that improved my work more than any single purchase I've ever made. This isn't a video about why premium Japanese tools are a waste of money. They're not. This is about the order of operations, about what actually deserves your dollars first, and why getting that sequence wrong cost me years of progress I could have made for a fraction of the price. To understand why I made the mistakes I made, you need to understand a little bit about the tradition these tools come from. Japanese hand tools, especially chisels, planes, and saws, exist within a craft culture that assumes something most Western hobbyist woodworkers don't think about. They assume the user has already been trained. In the traditional Japanese apprenticeship system, a young woodworker might spend the first 2 or 3 years doing almost nothing but sharpening his master's tools, sharpening his own basic tools, learning to read the scratch pattern on a blade and feel when the bevel is consistent, learning to maintain stones. By the time that apprentice picks up a premium blade forged by a well-known smith, his hands already know what a properly prepared edge feels like. He can set up a die, the wooden body of a plane, with confidence. He can read the grain of a board and predict how the tool will behave. The premium tool isn't teaching him anything. It's rewarding skills he already has. It's giving him finer steel that holds an edge longer during a full day of work, or a blade geometry that responds to adjustments he's already learned to make. When I bought my first high-end chisel set, I had maybe 2 years of hobbyist experience. I didn't have bad hands, but I didn't have trained hands either. I was skipping straight to the reward without having done the work, and I didn't even know that's what I was doing. Let me start with the chisels, because that's where this whole education began. I bought a set of 4 from a maker whose name carries real weight in the Japanese tool world. White steel No. 1, hand-forged laminated construction, the kind of chisels that serious woodworkers talk about with reverence. And when I unwrapped them, I understood why. The fit and finish were on another level. The way the steel met the iron backing was seamless. The balance in my hand felt precise and intentional. I was sure these were going to transform my dovetails. They didn't. My dovetails looked almost exactly the same as they had with the mid-tier chisels I'd been using before, a set that cost about 1/3 of the price, and it took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out why. A friend of mine, a guy who's been working wood for about 30 years, came by the shop one afternoon. He picked up one of my mid-tier chisels, the ones I'd basically retired, and paired an end grain surface that was cleaner than anything I'd been producing with the expensive set. Same chisel I'd given up on. The difference was his sharpening was impeccable. His edge was consistent across the full width of the blade, honed on good stones with a practiced motion that produced a mirror polish right to the tip. And his hand control, the way he registered the back of the chisel flat against the work, the way he controlled pressure through the cut, that was decades of muscle memory. The expensive chisel I'd been using had slightly better steel. It could take a slightly more acute edge and hold it a bit longer. But I wasn't sharp enough in my technique to access that advantage. I was putting a premium edge on a blade and then degrading it with inconsistent technique before I ever touched the wood. The mid-tier chisel, properly sharpened by someone who knew what he was doing, outperformed my top-tier chisel in my hands. That was a hard afternoon. The plane was an even more expensive lesson. I tracked down a kana from a smith whose work I'd admired in photographs and forum posts for over a year. When it arrived, it was everything I'd hoped for. The blade was stunning. The chip breaker was fitted with precision that bordered on art. The die was carved from a block of white oak that had been air-dried for what I was told was over 10 years. I couldn't wait to take my first shaving. It took me 3 weeks before I got a full-width shaving that didn't tear out or chatter. 3 weeks. And that wasn't because anything was wrong with the plane. It was because setting up a kana properly is a skill in itself, and I was learning it for the first time on a tool that demanded the most from its user. The DII needed to be conditioned to my specific humidity. The blade needed to be seated precisely, and I mean precisely. We're talking adjustments measured in thousandths of an inch. The chip breaker had to mate perfectly with the blade face, and achieving that required a level of sharpening and lapping I hadn't developed yet. Meanwhile, sitting on my shelf was a mid-tier kana I'd bought a year earlier. Nothing fancy. Good steel, honest construction. I'd spent hundreds of hours with that plane, adjusting it, learning its quirks, figuring out how it responded to seasonal humidity changes in my shop. And that plane was producing beautiful, translucent shavings of hinoki and Port Orford cedar because I understood it. I knew exactly how far to tap the blade, how the die liked to be conditioned, where it needed relief. The premium plane was objectively a finer instrument, but the mid-tier plane was my instrument, and my work showed it. By the way, if you are enjoying learning about these ancient methods, I put together something I think you will really appreciate. It is called Kenji's Workshop, and it is a collection of 100 ancient Eastern woodworking secrets for the modern craftsman. Techniques like the ones we are covering today and a whole lot more. You can grab your copy by scanning the QR code on screen or just use the first link in the description. All right, let us keep going. The saw was the purchase that finally made the pattern impossible to ignore. I bought a premium dozuki from a well-regarded maker. Beautiful handle, teeth that were cut and set by hand, not stamped by machine. The plate was thin, maybe 12/1000ths of an inch, and tensioned so perfectly it rang like a bell when you flicked it. I took it to my bench and started cutting joinery, and my cuts wandered. Not because of the saw was flawless. My cuts wandered because my body position was inconsistent. I was gripping too tightly. I was pushing into the cut instead of letting the teeth do the work. My eye line wasn't centered over the kerf. Every single problem in my sawing was a technique problem, and not one of them could be solved by a thinner plate or finer teeth. I went back to my mid-tier Ryoba, a pull saw I'd bought early on for about $45. It had a cross-cut side and a rip side, good steel, factory-set teeth. Nothing remarkable, but I'd cut hundreds of joints with that saw, and my hands knew how it tracked. When I focused on correcting my stance, relaxing my grip and letting gravity and the tooth geometry do the work, my cuts with that $45 saw were as accurate as anything I was producing with the premium dozuki. The expensive saw would matter someday, but not that day, not at my level. Here's where the real turning point came, and this is what I wish I'd understood from the beginning. After all 3 of those humbling experiences, I took the money I'd been setting aside for my next premium tool purchase and I spent it on stones. Good stones. I bought a medium grit synthetic stone, a finishing stone around 6,000 grit, and a natural Nagura for building slurry. The total was less than half of what I'd spent on those white steel chisels. Then I committed to sharpening every single day, not for hours, 10 to 15 minutes each morning before I started working. I picked one chisel, my most used mid-tier bench chisel, a 1/4 inch, and I sharpened it with full attention, feeling the bevel contact the stone, watching the scratch pattern develop evenly. Learning to hold a consistent angle not by jig, but by hand, because that's how you develop the sensitivity to know when something is right. Within about 6 weeks, something shifted. My edges were lasting longer. My paring cuts were cleaner. End grain that used to tear was coming off in controlled, curling shavings. The chisel hadn't changed. It was the same mid-tier tool it had always been, but my ability to prepare it and use it had crossed a threshold, and suddenly that tool was performing at a level I'd been trying to buy my way into for years. That was the moment I understood. The edge is the tool. The steel is just what holds the edge. And the edge is only as good as the hands that create it. Let me share some patterns I fell into that I see other woodworkers repeating, and I want to call them out because recognizing them would have saved me a lot of grief. The first pattern is buying a tool to solve a technique problem. Your dovetails have gaps, so you buy a better chisel. Your surfaces have tear out, so you buy a better plane. But the gap is coming from your layout or your sawing, and the tear out is coming from your blade angle or your reading of the grain. The tool didn't create the problem, and a more expensive tool won't fix it. The second pattern is underinvesting in sharpening. I know it's not exciting. Nobody posts glamour shots of their Waterstone collection. But I'm telling you from hard experience, $200 spent on good stones and 60 days of disciplined practice will transform your work more than $2,000 spent on premium blades. The third pattern is never fully setting up what you already own. Most mid-tier Japanese tools arrive needing real setup work. Backs need to be flattened, bevels need to be established properly, plane bodies need to be conditioned and adjusted. If you skip that work and just start cutting, you're using maybe 60% of what that tool can deliver, and then you blame the tool for the results. The fourth pattern, and this is the one I'm most guilty of, is confusing the pleasure of owning a fine tool with the progress of developing a skill. They're not the same thing. A beautiful chisel on your bench feels like progress. It looks like progress. But if your sharpening hasn't improved and your hand control hasn't developed, it's not progress. It's just a nicer chisel sitting next to the same skill level. Now, I want to be honest about something, because I don't want this to sound like premium tools are a scam or a waste. They are absolutely not. The white steel in those high-end chisels takes an edge that is genuinely finer and holds it measurably longer than the steel in my mid-tier set. The premium Canna, once I finally learned to set it up properly, produces a surface that I can distinguish from my mid-tier plane with my fingertips. The Dozuki tracks with less effort once your technique is ready for it. Premium tools are real, and the craftsmen who forge them are doing work that deserves respect and fair compensation. The question is not whether they're better, they are. The question is whether you're ready to feel the difference and use it. If you're still developing your sharpening consistency, if you're still learning to read grain direction, if you haven't spent serious time tuning and maintaining a simpler tool, then the premium advantage is going to be invisible to you. You'll own a better tool but produce the same work. Graduate to premium when you've outgrown mid-tier. You'll know because you'll feel it. You'll feel the edge dulling sooner than you want. You'll feel limitations in the steel that you couldn't have identified 2 years earlier. That's when the investment pays you back. Now, for the bonus tip I promised at the beginning. This is the practice routine that changed everything for me, and it costs almost nothing. I call it 1 chisel, 1 stone, 1 month. Pick your most used chisel, just one. Pick your best finishing stone, and for 30 days, spend 10 to 15 minutes every morning sharpening that single chisel by hand. No jig, no guide, just your hands, the stone, and your attention. For the first week, focus only on maintaining a consistent bevel angle. Don't worry about speed. Don't worry about getting a mirror polish. Just feel the bevel sit flat on the stone and make even strokes. By the second week, start paying attention to the scratch pattern. It should be even across the full width of the bevel. If it's heavier on one side, your pressure is uneven. Correct it. By the third week, you'll notice you're finding the angle faster. Your hands will start to remember. By the end of the month, you'll pick up that chisel and put it on the stone, and the bevel will register flat almost immediately. That's muscle memory. That's the foundation that every premium tool is designed to sit on top of. I did this about 3 years ago, and I am not exaggerating when I tell you it improved my work more than any single tool I have ever purchased. One more thing before I let you go. I spent a long time gathering the best ancient Eastern woodworking methods I have come across, and I put them all into a book called Kenji's Workshop. 100 techniques that most modern woodworkers have never seen, with step-by-step photos and clear explanations you can actually follow in your shop. Scan the QR code on screen right now or grab it from the first link in the description. I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next one.